Hello and welcome to the next video in this how to build your own desktop PC video series. In this video, we're going to go over a power supply and all the connectors that go along with that and how to get this ready to connect. I'm going to provide an overview for how the power supply works and what kinds of power supplies you can purchase and what are the specifications that are most important in order for you to buy the correct power supply for your needs. So I've selected a Corsair CX750M, which is a 750 watt power supply. So I've used Corsair power supplies multiple times in all the desktop PCs that I've built before, and they are very reliable. I've never had one fail, and they usually run for a very long time. The one I'm using right now on my current desktop PC has been running in effect almost nonstop for the past 7 years. So definitely highly recommend Corsair. I'll leave a link below for this exact power supply, but there are other variants depending on your needs. This is a 750 watt power supply. You can also get them in less or more wattage depending on your needs. Okay, so as you can see here, this is a semi-modular power supply. You can buy power supplies in different forms. You can buy what's called a fully modular power supply, or you can buy them in semi-modular like this. All that means is all the connectors on the side are configurable. They're not attached. So a semi-modular power supply will be one where there is at least one connector. As you can see here, one connector is non-removable. It is part of the build of the power supply. So it's not modular. It's not really configurable. While the others right here, there's spots for them to have power connectors attached to them. So that's what a semi-modular power supply means. A fully modular power supply is effectively every one of the connectors, every one of the power connectors connected to the power supply is detachable. Now I went with a semi-modular power supply because it's actually a little bit cheaper than if you were to buy a fully modular power supply with the same wattage rating and the same brand. Now, why did I do that? Because I do know for a fact that in my case here with this power supply, the ATX power connector, this one that's already attached, non-removable, is one that every desktop PC needs. So I will never have a need to remove this power connector or use it for something else. That's why it makes no sense to buy a fully modular power supply only to attach this power cable, which I will show in a future video. That's the power cable that powers the motherboard. So a semi-modular power supply is typically less expensive, but still gets you all the power that you need for your usage. Let's go ahead and open this thing up and I can show you all the contents. Nice, brand new power supply. First thing you'll see, the main power connector that plugs into your 120 volt outlet. Here's the power supply, and here's all the connectors. So let's go over the types of connectors that are typical to connect to a power supply. So here's a listing of all the connectors that you can possibly connect to the power supply. Now, the power supply side of the connector is going to be the same, and I'll show you that here in a minute. The other side of that connector will vary. So as you can see here, this is the non-removable connector. This is the ATX connector. As I mentioned in my case video that I've posted earlier in this video series, ATX is the form factor or the size for the motherboard itself. So this ATX power supply connector is what's going to power the motherboard. I'll show you how to attach that in a future video. This is a 12 volt ATX EPS connector that's going to also connect to the motherboard. And then you've got your peripheral connectors. A PCIe connector is one that's typically used to power things like your graphics processing unit, your GPU. This is a Molex connector. This is going to be powering things like your fans. And then you got serial ATA right here. Serial ATA is used for your hard drive power. So that's just a quick overview of the connectors that you can use to power the various components and peripherals in your desktop PC. So what I love about Corsair power supplies is that their packaging is always very clean, and it's always been a quality product. I've never had a Corsair power supply fail or even act flaky. So definitely very quality products. But as you can see here, they've got all the connectors you can possibly need to connect your peripherals in your desktop PC build. Here is the not so modular connector that I mentioned earlier. That's the ATX connector. That's going to be the one powering my motherboard, the main motherboard. Every desktop PC needs this, so there's no reason for me to ever have to disconnect that. As you can see, this is non-movable. It's this big power connector right here that connects straight to the motherboard. On one side, you'll connect this to the main power outlet. on-off switch. Pretty simple. This is the side that's going to be facing outward from your desktop case. That way you can access this switch and turn the supply off if you need to. On the other side, this side will be internal to your case, and you will be connecting one or more of these power connectors to power your various peripherals. For example, if you needed to power your graphics processing unit, it most likely will take a PCIe connector like this. So what you do is take one side, connect it to your GPU, and take the other side right here and connect it to one of these where it says PCIe CPU. These are coded so they can only be plugged in one way. That way, the pins are not flip-flopped or swapped. Here's the power supply. Here's the cable. What you will end up doing is connecting this side right here to your GPU, your graphics processing unit. I'll show you how to do that here when we get to the step in this project. And this other side right here will connect to one of these PCIe CPU connectors. Just like that. The nice thing about modular power supplies is you only have to connect power connectors for the peripherals that you have in your system. Now, a long time ago, for reference, power supplies used to come with pre-attached connectors that you could not remove. So you would get a subset of these connectors that may or may not fit. So they were very much static, not a whole lot of configurability. That has since changed, and now you have modular power supplies like this that enables the user, you and I, to connect the power connectors that are needed. You'd simply push on this clip right here, like this, push down, simply push on this, and pull the connector to disconnect it from the power supply. Here's another very popular power connector. This one is called Molex right here. Molex is used to power things like your fans in your case. The fans that I showed in the desktop case video that I posted earlier, that's what Molex is for. This is to power that. Also, there's the small 4-pin like this that is used for serial ATA. So this will power peripherals such as your hard drive. Here's another connector that I'll be using. This one is the serial ATA connector, and this will be used for things such as hard drives. So here's a hard drive. Once I have this mounted in my desktop case, I will simply connect the power pins of a hard drive right here to one of these. Notice that there is a little notch on one side, so you can only attach the power connector in a single way. So here we go, just to demonstrate. Here we go, pretty simple. So now I will be able to power this hard drive using this connector. And then the other side looks like this. It's only a 6-pin connector. There's a label right here. It says serial ATA, PATA, SATA, S stands for serial. So you connect this to this side. And that's it. So I highly recommend a semi-modular power supply because that gives you the most flexibility. And then you can connect whatever power connectors you need. I provided a quick overview over some of those power connectors that you could need to power different peripherals, but with a modular power supply, you can pick and choose and connect what you need. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Really, the goal of this video series for how to build your own desktop PC is to show you how simple it is to build a desktop PC. So if you've ever felt intimidated or you don't feel like you have the information necessary, hopefully you can feel the exact opposite of that once you watch this video series. One other thing I want to mention in this video with regards to power supply is the actual wattage rating of the power supply. So I went with a 750 watt power supply because I did some quick math and estimated how much power I expect every one of the components in my desktop PC to use. I went with a higher end processor, which will pull around 150 watts. And I also have a GPU, which could pull around 200 watts. And I have fans and other things that don't use much, but I guesstimated somewhere around 100 there, and then about another 100 for the motherboard, etc. So I'm sitting around roughly 550 to 600 max. Max wattage I expect to use ever is around 600. So I went with a 750 because I want a margin. If for whatever reason I need more, or if I decided to add more peripherals. Like if I wanted to run a second GPU or something, I want to have enough margin to do that without having to replace my power supply. So long story short, you could choose to go with a higher power rating for your power supply and pay more money. But if you can estimate roughly how much power you expect to use, you can actually save yourself some money and buy something that still fits your need with enough margin without having to go overboard. So in my case, I went with a 750 semi-modular. This thing was around $80, which was a fantastic deal in my opinion. So I went ahead and grabbed it brand new. I'll leave a link below for this power supply if you're interested to build your own. So that's it for power supplies. That's in a nutshell how they work, how we're going to integrate them and connect them. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, give it a like and subscribe to my channel.